The problem is that today, and as you mentioned, over the last year, people are going directly to ChatGPT to ask and answer questions. They're not going to Google, or at least not in the same way. And that's why Google's really, I think, sprinting to try to catch up with AI overviews and changing some of the results and how they're created. But, ultimately, it's kind of like saying, oh, no one will ever unseat Facebook, yet Facebook is unseating itself through Instagram, and TikTok is replacing Facebook. So we have these visions of grandeur around some of the typical search behaviors because we've operated that way for so long.
Hi, everyone. This is Joshua Hoffman and Alex Gerashenko, and welcome to another episode of the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast, where we deconstruct the why and how agency owners found their success and learn a little bit more about how they help their clients. Today, I have Michael Fleischner, the founder and CEO of Big Fin SEO, a results-driven digital marketing agency that helps businesses of all sizes boost their online visibility and go through a custom SEO, paid search, web development, and brand strategy. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
So when I was doing some research on this and I spent some time on your website, I noticed that you list your title as captain and CEO. And then you have like a question, when you click and you get the bios of people, and in the About Us section, you have the question, when you go to the beach, what do you love to do? Which, by the way, I'm not going to ask that question, but if you want to answer that question as well, you totally can.
Yeah.
So, obviously you love the ocean, but where does your company name come from? Because the company name is Big Fin SEO. So what's the story behind that?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story, and I was kind of tipped off to this because I remember someone talking about Jeff Bezos and how did he come up with the name Amazon. And what a lot of people don't know about that, the logo, not only the name, but the logo is there's like this connector, right, from A to Z. And it's just like the most comprehensive, complete idea. And ultimately, that's what Amazon evolved into, right? So there's conceptually, I think there's always been this piece of my brain that's kind of thinking big and thinking strategically. And I had a similar story in the sense that when I was a little kid, I went deep sea fishing with my grandfather. I was a young kid, but on that trip, he actually caught a shark. And I remember just thinking to myself, even at that age, like the shark is the dominant predator in the ocean. I mean, maybe a humpback whale could eat a shark. I don't know enough about it, but that's something when I formed the agency, I wanted to be able to provide for clients. It's okay to exist out there if you're a business, but you really want to dominate, especially a lot of the business owners that I work with. And to me, Big Fin, using the shark in our logo, having this oceanic theme about navigating the waters is really relevant, I think, to the digital marketing space in particular, and certainly our agency. When we're interacting with different companies, all different sizes, different industries, they all have their own challenges, and trying to navigate things gracefully can be a challenge. So we want to kind of step up and step into those businesses, and more importantly, understanding how search engines work and how paid advertising works in order to drive results.
Oh, that was good. That was clean.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely get more into the business and what you guys do in a second, but I kind of want to talk about Michael, the person, for a second. And I noticed that you were previously on the board, or you're the board president at American Marketing Association, so AMA. How did that come about, and kind of what value did you get there?
Well, I definitely have to kind of pitch the AMA, American Marketing Association. Anyone who's involved in marketing should really be involved either at the local or national level with the AMA because they're really on the forefront of what's going on in marketing. So, when I was in college, I was involved for a short while, and then I kind of left the AMA collegiate chapter. And when I started working my career, I started working for corporations. I quickly found that there were not a lot of marketing people to learn from, collaborate with, and joining a group, and it doesn't have to be the AMA, but certainly whatever your discipline is in marketing, there's so much value to be gained by surrounding yourself with people who are knee deep in what's going on in that particular niche or industry. And I found that the AMA was able to provide that for me. So, training, learning, studies, research, information, connections, and collaboration. And especially as an agency owner today, I still work pretty closely with the AMA when it comes to staffing in particular, finding resources around different projects or initiatives. Because you guys know as well as I do, running an agency, you have most of the expertise in-house, but you can't do everything all the time for everyone. It's just impossible. No agency can hire for that and deliver on that promise unless they have access to experts in given areas. So the AMA is able to provide that both at the local and national level. And again, I just encourage people to kind of explore, see what resources are available, and see how they can benefit.
You mentioned when you started your career, and I wasn't gonna bring this up because I wanted to get, we had a lot of questions to ask you, but I am intrigued that you actually are one of those rare people that majored in college, what you actually ended up doing. What intrigued you in marketing so much then? Is that the same reason now? Like, can you kind of talk through that?
When I was a kid, I really had a passion around commercials. Like for me, the Super Bowl was the most exciting event in the world. I could care less who was playing. Like I was all about the commercials. And I remember being in college thinking, and I was focused on marketing. And one of my professors said, well, what is it you want to do? And I'm like, I want to make commercials. So he said, great, I'm going to set you up with an ad agency. You'll go into the city, you'll interview. I mean, in hindsight, it was probably the most, like, it doesn't work that way today, but it was the most amazing thing. I had an interview, and I remember, I'm in this room with like 20 other people. A woman steps out with a clipboard, calls my name. I sit down in the chair. I don't even ask my first question. And she basically says, the job is 80 hours a week and pays $18,000 a year. Do you want it or not? Like that was the interview. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. And of course I was like, I was just totally taken by surprise. So I said, I'm going to have to think about it. She's like, well, then you're not right for the job. And she literally kicked me out of the office, called the next person on the clipboard as I'm walking out. So I went back to my professor and I'm like, hey man, like, this is not what I expected. He's like, well, I thought you wanted to be in advertising. I'm like, well, I want to make commercials, but I don't know that I want to be in this type of environment, getting paid next to nothing, right? And so I was kind of lost. I said, well, what should I do? He's like, well, do what most people do when they're not sure about their career. I'm like, what's that? Go to grad school. So that's what I ended up doing. And I got my degree. I thought that was kind of cute, but he wasn't wrong. And I got my degree in integrated marketing communications, which really helped, I think, elevate my understanding of strategy, positioning, how to integrate multiple forms of marketing to get to an outcome, which for me was really a good fit because I get bored easily. So I need to have my hands in a lot of different buckets in order to keep things engaging. And it really opens up your mind to understanding that you can't be a one-trick pony in this business. You'll get eaten alive. So you need to understand, not just, online, but offline, not just social media marketing, but Google Ads and Bing and, all these things. So I think it really served me well. And I think you're right. I'm very fortunate, Josh, that I continue to stay passionate about marketing and also have the runway to explore and expand and continue learning.
I love that. And I guess let's use that as kind of the segue to get into your company, BigFin SEO. Can you tell us just a little bit more about that and kind of what you guys do, your services, all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. And I am a little crazy when it comes to the company because we love it. We love our clients. We love the work we do. And I think a lot of that is because we, as the experts, are learning new things each and every day. I know I spoke with you and Alex a while ago about geo and AI overviews. and the expansion that continues to happen just in SEO, not to mention paid search, web development, all these other things that we're involved with. But, for me, after spending quite a bit of time in corporate marketing and working with a lot of different agencies, at some point I said to myself, you know what, I can do this a lot better. And it was a bit naive, I will admit, because everything looks easier than it actually is. But I think the biggest frustration I was trying to solve for is all of these agencies were charging big dollars and not really delivering on results. And in fact, whoever sold it was never involved with the project. You got handed off to, no offense, a young 20-something just out of college, and which is great. They were friendly enough, but they didn't have the industry expertise. They didn't have the depth of knowledge around integrated marketing or digital marketing, and it just fell short. And I was so frustrated that I said, you know what, one day I'm going to create an agency that believes in this idea of abundance exchange. And abundance exchange is really not just doing what you're paid to do, but going above and beyond and creating a tangible result. And that's something that's really within our culture at Big Fin, and something I feel confident that we deliver on. And if we can't, then we either part ways with clients or we just don't take them on. And selfishly, I like to win. So if we can't win for our client, if we can't deliver the result, we're just not going to take on the business. And I think the most interesting expansion that we've had has really been around this idea of AI, large language models, ChatGPT, getting to people to show up or companies to show up in local search, because that's really how things are done today. Unless you're ordering something on Amazon.com, you want a local result, whether that's a chiropractor near me or a dentist near me, or really just any type of business that you're going to interact with. So again, the company continues to expand and grow, and we're forever grateful to our clients. But at the same time, we feel like we over deliver on our promises. And I think the other thing is that I've learned, because again, it selfishly, is over communicating. I think that's a big challenge, especially in agency life. People who start the agencies who might believe in open and honest communication, as they get into leadership roles, as they start to hire more and more people, they really don't have visibility into the connections that the account managers have with clients, or the efficacy of the communication. And I think those are the pieces that really make a difference. And I say that because a lot of the clients that we get are surprised that when they send an email, they get an email back in a reasonable amount of time. Or when they call, someone picks up the phone. And, it's a little disappointing that it's devolved into that, but I think it's also an opportunity for agencies who really care about their clients to be more responsive.
Mm-hmm. Have you, with having the master's in integrative marketing, what's the realm or the scope that you will go into before you decide to bring in someone else potentially?
Well, I think, just to unpack that a little bit, Alex, I think that when we always diagnose before we prescribe, and that's really where we determine the strategy. Now, we won't admit to a client, hey, we have it figured out already, because we don't have the whole thing figured out, number one. And number two, it's just directional based on our expertise. And we want to bring the client along. We don't want to just say, oh, you have X and I'm going to give you Y, without an explanation, without explaining the side effects, without explaining the work they're going to have to do, so on and so forth. So as we're going through that process, and like I said, most of the time we can do it all in-house, especially if it kind of falls in our triangle of solutions, which is SEO, paid search, and website development. And we've developed that because we started with SEO, and we had a lot of clients who said, this is great, but it's taking a long time. And although we're seeing our rankings improve, we're not seeing the traffic or the conversion. So we said, you know what? We'll add paid search to bridge the gap, start driving the traffic immediately, and then we'll go from there. And of course, once you start driving the traffic and their websites aren't converting because they haven't been set up to convert. Well, now we got to get into website development and optimization, those sorts of things. So that's kind of our sweet spot. And generally, again, a lot of the clients we're bringing on, we can service through those pillars. But if we can't, then we have that conversation with the client. Either, look, we're gonna go to our extended team to be able to provide these solutions, additional solutions, or we have partners who can help in these different places.
Makes sense.
I want to go back and kind of just double click on what you were saying right before that, which is, you mentioned geo and AI and LLMs. So what's the story there related to what you're doing? Is SEO changing? Like, what does the landscape look like now? Because I mean, it's been literally the last year, right? Like, we're so used to things taking a year, two, 3 years
Yeah.
to get in the market, but now it's just, I mean, it's like this, and if you're not looking at that, then you're falling behind. So what does it look like for you? What does the market look like?
Yeah, Josh, it's interesting for me because I've been doing this a long time. I'm not going to admit how long I've been in the SEO business, but it's longer than most. And this one is different. And what I mean by that is, when I started out almost 20 years ago, the way that SEO was changing was more an evolution, not a sea change, which is happening here. The evolution was, oh, this is what you needed to do to rank. Oh, this is what you need to do to rank differently. Oh, this is a different kind of ranking. Now we have images showing up in search, so on and so forth, right? So, like, there was all this evolution happening in the world of search, and it created a really cool dynamic for us and our clients. It helped kind of expand content generation and creating different types of digital assets, building authority, doing all these fun, exciting projects for clients, really to get them to show up in search results. The problem is that today, and as you mentioned, over the last year, people are going directly to ChatGPT to ask and answer questions. They're not going to Google, or at least not in the same way. And that's why Google's really, I think, sprinting to try to catch up with AI overviews and changing some of the results and how they're created. But, ultimately, it's kind of like saying, oh, no one will ever unseat Facebook, yet Facebook is unseating itself through Instagram, and TikTok is replacing Facebook. So we have these visions of grandeur around some of the typical search behaviors because we've operated that way for so long. We're taking out our phone, we're going to Google, we're taking out our phone, we're typing right in Chrome for a search, right? And now that is really changing. People are using AI either conversationally, right? They're in the car, they're pressing the button and talking to Siri, or they're pulling out their phone and clicking chat or perplexity or whatever the case might be. And those results, although being generated in sometimes much the same way that Google will generate a result, it is different. And I'm saying that it's a sea change because it's changing consumer behavior. And because of that, we all have to get on that boat because the train has already left the station. And if you're not part of that, as an agency, as a vendor, you're going to miss out. And I think I may have mentioned to you and Alex previously, like, I've spent the last couple of months talking with probably a dozen software vendors who are all trying to solve for this new search dilemma. And that's how I know that it's a big deal, because people can talk about it, but when they're investing money and there's venture capital behind trying to, quote unquote, solve search for LLMs, meaning trying to reverse the algorithm, figure out how can I get my business or company ranked, so on and so forth, right? When there's money behind it, this is the future. And we're seeing the early stages of it now, but I can guarantee you that in 6 months, a year, 2 years, the traditional SEO software companies like SEMrush and Moz, they will either not exist or they will be largely focused on LLMs.
I've seen some of that already starting to happen. The SEO agencies that we've been working with are either scrambling to figure out how do we get our clients to come up when someone asks a question in GPT or another LLM, or are already doing it. But the tools to get you there are still very early. And yeah, so I completely agree with you. Do you have any gauge on what that shift? Can you quantify that shift at this point? Like from they used to go from Google is now going to LLMs. Is it like
Mhm.
how big is it?
Yeah, I read something recently, and I don't recall the source, so do your own research. But it said something like 12%. And you might say, well, 12%, that's not a lot. But keep in mind that billions of searches are happening each and every day. Billions with a B,
Yeah.
maybe even a trillion. I don't know. So even if that's wrong, and instead of 12%, it's 1.2%, it's significant, and there's momentum behind it. It's only going to grow. It's not going to decline. That's like someone saying, "Oh, the internet, yeah, that'll never happen," or "That's going to go away. It's a fad." It's not. And to your point, Alex, I think that the real scramble is twofold. One is the audit, which is, and I just had this yesterday. I had a client reach out saying, where are we for these terms? Like, do I show up? So one is the audit, and then the other is the remediation. Because if we as an agency partner with clients to help them show up wherever people may be searching, and we can say to them, "You're not showing up," the next logical question is, okay, well, how can I do that?
Mhm.
And I think the jury is still out on how to have the most impact on, I'm going to call them rankings in something like a ChatGPT or Perplexity. But at the end of the day, there are certain similarities between how we've optimized for Google and how we optimize for ChatGPT. I think the biggest difference is how heavily the LLMs are using citations and authoritative citations. So a lot of people don't know this, but and they might see it now that we're talking about it. If you pay attention when you use chat or one of these other large language models, they will flash pretty quickly the references that they're using, or there might be a link at the end of the mention, and it's actually documenting where they're pulling information from. So just like the old days of SEO, well, not even old days, we still do it. You want to rank as well as your competitor? Well, we're reverse engineering each and every one of those links, right? Like we have SEOs who are visiting top competitors, go to all the links that are pointing to their website, and we try to get links from those same websites. It's really not that different with LLMs, although there are many other things you need to do with LLMs, certain text files and schema markup and all these other things that are somewhat technical. But at the end of the day, there are certain similarities. And I think in order to remediate and fix or improve rankings in LLMs, a lot of SEOs are going to start there. And I think it's a great place to start. It's not the end all be all, and it will evolve, especially if some of these software tools can really help to accelerate that work.
Mhm. One more question on this topic, and it's just a thought. We think about someone making a decision to purchase something, right? Usually you have like the um, short tail versus long tail as you go down the funnel. Um, it would be interesting to see um, if people are using Chat GPT or some other LLM, Perplexity, whatever tool to get down into the details of their final decision making as opposed to an initial kind of just give me some options that are available when I'm still kind of just puttering around the top of the funnel. And what does, yeah, I'm interested to learn more about that and how you play into it. Like, you start writing blog posts specifically. I mean, you have the FAQs, obviously,
Mhm.
to dive into those details, marking up those FAQs with schema for the the LLMs, and maybe blog posts specifically to even expand on those commonly asked questions as someone gets further down the funnel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think too that more research will come out in terms of user behavior. And based on that user behavior, we in the digital marketing world will start to develop methods to answer those questions more directly. Because LLMs right now, they're inherently lazy. At least that's my perspective. They're not going, even though it says, taking a minute to think longer or deep research or
Yeah.
they're just scanning more websites. But Google does that, through AI as well. So it's nothing quote unquote new, but it is an advancement in terms of search behavior and how these machines return information. But it is still really early. And again, like you're saying, Josh, like it's accelerated significantly in the last year, but I think there's just a lot more that we need to learn, not just in terms of how users interact with these tools, but how they are refining their result set, so that we can continue to do that on behalf of clients.
Yeah, something that we're thinking about now. We have a proposed solution for it, but it's not implemented yet because it's going to take a little bit of work. But when it, because we're now so used to, I remember like I took a course to learn how to use Google properly, how to properly think about crafting the search term or question or whatever it was down to get down to relevant results instead of thousands. Um, and now a lot of that's gone away because you could just chat with GPT. And if you took a wrong turn, you naturally, as if you're talking to a person, ask the right question and get into that depth. Um, what's becoming really interesting is once you get someone to your place, your site, wherever it is that you have them, that you want to have them learn more about your company and convert, they're still going to have those same questions. So how do you take that same experience to drive them further down the funnel? They may not want to look through all your FAQs. So having AI in your website to know what page they're on and know what kind of questions they may be asking or propose something. So I've seen good examples of that happening in chat on sites, not connected to AI. Just here's some relevant questions that may come up, but really figuring out how that would work as an AI powered tool based on the page that they're on and what questions they may have. But yeah, and just basically to add to, there's a lot of research right now that's becoming really helpful to understand how people behave and think and how we can help them get to their intended result and hopefully have us included in that result or our clients included. So
That's the goal.
it's a very interesting. Yeah, I love what's going on. It's very um, stimulating to think about. So yeah, very exciting time.
No, I thought that was a great addition. And before we take a look at a website together, which we'll do right after this, the last time we spoke, I just wanted to kind of get this in here because I thought it was really important. But you mentioned like the hidden struggles of owning an agency. And I thought it would just be really good to share kind of, on this show. So can you share a little bit more about, some of the difficulties that you faced being an agency owner?
Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting. I was literally just having a conversation with a friend yesterday, who also owns an agency, and we were talking about this very thing because, you know, thinking about the evolution of an agency, growth has to be, from my perspective, growth has to be metered because you can't overextend yourself and go out and hire all these people based on the hope that your clients are going to stay forever. And the reason is because they're not going to stay forever. And of course, you want them to stay as long as there's a fair exchange of value and everybody's happy. But clients come and go, and you're going to be bringing in new clients. Some clients just come in for project work. So they're coming in, let's say today, and you may not see them again for a year or 9 months. And because of that, there is this ongoing struggle of, operating your business based on the traditional metrics. And what I mean by that is, it's all inputs and outputs. And if you're selling widgets and you've got all this search history, or I'm sorry, sales history that says this is how many widgets you sell on this particular day of this year, year after year, and there's consistency there, then you can start to make some strategic investments, right? Because you've got the revenue side of the equation, and you can, decide on how you spend on the expense side of the equation. But the agency world is very different because of this interesting dynamic that we have with existing clients spending more, spending less, coming and going, new clients, trying to predict really what the revenue stream will look like from them. And because of that, it creates a pretty unique dynamic with your employees, with your vendors, even with your customers. And I think that's the part that a lot of agency owners just don't talk about, but we all experience, every one of us. And, it's not uncommon that I'll sit down with, someone kind of in my sphere of agency ownership, and I'll say, man, things are amazing. We brought on 5 new clients and we're, working on all these exciting projects. And then you might see the same person 4 months later. How's it going? And they're like, it's the worst. Like, I'm unhappy. We just lost 5 clients. I had to let people go. And that's kind of the manic depressive nature of agency ownership. And it's not for everybody. I've been around long enough to know that all you can do is continually focus on delivering quality results for your customers. And you can do that and they may still leave. You may not do that and they stay. But you really have to, again, from my perspective, make sure that you're delivering the best quality and you're engaging in this idea of fair exchange or abundance exchange on a regular basis. And that's it. There's really no more to it. But over time, the good news is you do get accustomed to, it's kind of like Game of Thrones. When you're kind of getting into the characters initially, you quickly realize don't get attached to any of the characters, right? Like it's kind of the same dynamic, and that's something that I think, again, we as agency owners don't always share, but we're all experiencing it for sure.
How do you deal with those cycles, either when you've have too much work for the size of the team or not enough? Do you have any strategies that you've used so far to help balance that out?
Yeah, I think there are two. One is kind of the mental, the other is the physical. The mental is just being grateful no matter where you are. Even when you've lost 4 clients, you should be grateful for the clients that you still have. And you should be grateful that you now have space to focus on other things, whether that's to double down on existing clients and just totally love on them and make sure that you're over delivering, or to focus on sales and marketing in a bigger way to welcome new clients into the fold. So I think that's kind of the conceptually the mental piece of it. The physical piece from a staffing perspective is we basically operate at like an 80% capacity, so that any point in time we can take on the additional business, or if we cut back, we can kind of fill someone's coffers to focus on account management or delivery or whatever the case might be. So, I think it's just like any other, I hate to simplify it, but it's like inventory management, right? A restaurant doesn't want to over deliver. They'll have spoilage. They're going to end up throwing out food. But at the same time, you don't want to under deliver, because if on a given night someone, orders a few extra steaks, you want to be able to serve that and make that part of your business. So it's definitely, I mean, honestly, Alex, like I'm oversimplifying. It's a lot easier said than done, as you know, right? But it is something that I think everyone kind of has their own strategy, just based on how their agencies typically work.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought that was great. All right, let's move into the screen share. Alex, I think you have a website ready that we'll kind of just look through, and we think that this is the best way, Michael, to just get in your head. Obviously, we can share, how your business works and everything, but I think
Sure.
the best way is just to kind of look at a website, and look at it together, and again, just kind of understand how you're thinking about it. So,
When we pick something from your backyard.
Yeah, I
that's
love
perfect.
it.
I'll
I
throw it
love
over
it.
to you.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a few things that I tend to look at, and some of them are technical, some are user interface, user experience. And, the good news is we've got a lot of tools today that can help us analyze websites. And one of the things I'm going to kind of talk about some of the behind the scenes things first, and then we can kind of talk about the physical website. So one of the big things that still drives search results is what we call domain authority. And that's a measurement that one of our enterprise level SEO tools uses, Moz. SEMrush has a similar metric. But essentially, domain authority is how important does Google believe your website to be? And it's a score between 0 and 100. And for this particular one, I haven't run it. I've got a little app on my browser where I could pull this website up and give you the domain authority, but I'm pretty confident it's not that high. And I know that because that domain authority is based on a lot of factors, but one is usability, recency, frequency of posts, inbound link quality, so on and so forth. So I think one of the first things is really kind of taking a look at some of the technical SEO, and we would run a crawl against this website. And essentially what it would do is it would take kind of the best practices around search engine optimization and compare those to a score of how the site ranks. So that's typically where we start those engagements. The other is to look at really the usability of the website. So, here, and I understand that there are doctors listed, but from a usability perspective, Google typically likes to see the navigation at the very top. And there may be layered navigation, we call it the eyebrow nav, and the main navigation. But the reason they do that is Google or any other search engine is essentially using machines to read your website. And they do that by reading your navigation to build a sitemap in real time. Sometimes it used to be we used to have sitemaps up there in the navigation. Sometimes we'll do it in the footer. Oftentimes we do it on the back end through something called Google Search Console, where you can submit your sitemap. But they start with the navigation. So the fact that there's all this text around address and doctors, the Google bot is probably a little confused. And because of that, it's going to have to do a deeper dive on this site to ultimately see what it's all about. So Alex, if you scroll down a little bit, this is kind of what I expected here. So we've got a bunch of copy on the site, may or may not be relevant. Ultimately, keep in mind, it used to be really important to have all the information long form copy across the site. But now Google is able to crawl much more quickly and more comprehensively, literally in a fraction of a second. So what's more important than kind of listing everything on your website and kind of creating stickiness on the homepage is actually getting people to navigate through the site. So the fact that I'm looking at this and I'm not quite sure where I'm supposed to click. Now I've got to scroll all the way down the page to try to find what I'm looking for, tells me that people are probably not going deep into this website. The cool thing is we can look at Google Analytics in particular to see how people are navigating through the site, what pages they're visiting, how long they're spending on those pages. But, again, the question is, how do we get people quickly to the information they're looking for? And I think the top navigation, actually, as you kind of scroll down here, actually looks pretty good, right? Especially if that's where we were starting. Because if I'm a new client, I know where to go. If I want to learn more about the practice, I know where to go. If I'm looking for a specific doctor, I can just click on practitioners. So it's those sorts of things that we really, from a usability standpoint, want to focus on, even though it's quote unquote SEO, because the way that people engage with the actual website will impact the ranking. So that's definitely one area that I think they could improve on. I think the other thing that's important too is just not looking outdated, right? This website looks like it hasn't been touched in a while. And unfortunately, there are competitors, and I know because we do a lot of work in Princeton with really flashy new websites, and people don't read today. They may read enough to try to get where they're going and get the information they want. But there are a lot of things here that are just kind of missing. Whether it's a map of the location towards the bottom of the page, whether it's again an up-to-date site map. But those are the things that I'm picking up, and I haven't even done any audits, any analysis, used any of our tools. But a lot of this comes down to visual priority on mobile. So the majority of people are searching on mobile. I don't know how this displays on a mobile device. My assumption is not great. Let's see. It's actually a little better on mobile, I would say.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're not hit with the big header trying to get to the information we're looking for. But like that, I don't know if that blue bar is supposed to be a button. What am I supposed to do with that? Again, they're talking about joining Penn Medicine. I don't know how long that's been up there. I'm not sure how that's relevant to me as a customer. I'm probably looking for rank ratings, like especially around a specific doctor. So again, I think a lot of this is really understanding the usability as well as how this compares and ranks for specific keywords. Alex, do they have a blog as a menu item?
I see this. So looks like yes.
Yeah. And I see one post from 2014. So where this particular client could benefit is from some relevant, timely content that's being produced on a regular basis. And I say that because it's not just for Google, it's also for the LLMs. We know that LLMs will reference specific websites, especially your company's website. And if your last post is from 2014, it may not even see you as relevant, quite honestly, right? Because medicine changes just like everything else. And there's no keyword rich content talking about cardiology, the heart, treatments for high blood pressure, so on and so forth. So because of that, it's certainly not helping them. And it's an area that they could benefit from. I'd say the last thing as well, which obviously you guys are the experts in, is really around conversion optimization. And when I'm here, like the question I have is what action am I supposed to take? Like, is the primary action to schedule an appointment? Is it to contact them? Is it to connect with a specific office or a specific doctor? I just feel like there really is not a visual priority associated with the page and or strong call to action throughout. So I think you've got some UI, UX challenges here, and obviously some SEO, probably some technical SEO challenges that go beyond keyword rich content and optimizing around those things that we know both Google and LLMs are looking for.
That was a great breakdown. I'd be very interested to see how this does when you run the audit on it. I imagine there would be a lot of room for improvement. On our side, from a conversion standpoint, we've developed our own type of framework of looking at websites. And it's broken down into 3 questions that we think every visitor goes through. And feel free to challenge this. We've been challenged on this call before, and it's helped us evolve and go deeper into what those 3 questions are. But essentially, when you first get to anywhere, if you're coming from search or ad, or even if you were referred, your first question is, am I in the right place? So how does this look like in terms of am I in the right place? If I'm going for cardiology, I at least see a heart logo, but other than that, I'm not sure yet if I'm in the right place. So you're already making me think more than I need to. And the second part of am I in the right place is more personal to do you get me? do you get my needs? What are the problems that I'm potentially coming here with, and what am I looking for? And that may also, before I get to question two, I'm wondering if you go to the practitioners, would I be able to see, am I in the right place here easily? For example, let's assume that Dr. Shanahan, what is their specialization? There's a lot of reading here to do before I know specifically what Dr. Shanahan is the best expert in. Why should I trust him? I have to do a lot of reading. So I think it fails on that aspect. But if someone got here and said, okay, yes, I'm in the right place, the next thing that we see visitors looking for is, can I trust this company? Which breaks down into could be years of experience, could be specializations that they have, number of patients that they've served, testimonials, specific case studies, awards, designations. There's a lot of these kind of acronyms after the names of the doctors. Unless I'm deep in to looking for a cardiologist, I may not know what those means other than MD. So again, I'm not sure if I can trust them, or at least I have to do a lot of hunting to get there. And then the last thing that I feel, if you're able to check those boxes of, I feel like I'm in the right place and you get me, I feel like you're a trustworthy company. I can trust you based on what I'm seeing here. The last question is, do I feel comfortable taking the next step? And that is a method or approach to de-risking their decision.
Yes.
I don't know what I'm doing in terms of setting up an appointment or contacting you, or I don't have reassurance in terms of, can you see me in the time that I need because maybe I have an urgent issue? I don't know when I'm getting a call back. Do you take my insurance?
Yes.
How much is this going to cost me if it goes out? So you end up creating enough unanswered or unmitigated anxiety and concerns. And ultimately what happens is people leave and they'll go to that new, flashy, better converting website that is easy to navigate and answers to all of those questions. So I think from that aspect, and it's interesting here because there's a lot of practitioners, so they seem to be doing well as an office, but it seems like they need a lot of help online, and if they got it, they may be able to do even better. Because obviously what they're doing in their practice is working. They're just not able to properly display that online.
Yeah, which I think, honestly, not only is it an opportunity, but it's an unfortunate thing in the sense that we see this a lot, right? We see there, especially when it comes to, professional services, doctors, lawyers, so on and so forth. A lot of them are excellent, but they're not positioned as such online. No client reviews, no FAQs, no focus on their specific expertise. It's not highlighted in a simple, easily digestible way, as you probably refer to it, right? It's snackable content, and when people have to read, they're out. They're trying to burn too many calories to get to the information they're looking for. So I think that's obviously why we've talked about collaborating on these projects, because it's not just getting them to show up in search results. It's also when someone gets to their website, are they going to follow through that entire funnel and take advantage through a learn more, a contact form, an appointment, a demo, really something that's going to help that business thrive.
Absolutely.
No, I thought that was a great combination. And I think that's really what we're trying to do here, is just kind of combine the SEO conversation with the conversion conversation. But as we come up to the end of the episode, I just want to give you an opportunity to mention how people can find you and anything else you'd like to end with.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Josh. So people can definitely look me up at bigfinseo.com, BIGFINSEO.com. You'll find information about the agency there. I'm also an SEO guy, so if you can spell my name, or at least get kind of close, you'll find me out there on Google and everywhere else. And, I think one of the most important things, I think, for all of us, and one of the reasons why I'm so grateful to both of you is, you're having the difficult conversations with a lot of agency owners, people in the industry, not just about what's working and what we're focused on now, but some of those challenges and ultimately how to overcome those. And I feel that by having that open, honest dialogue amongst ourselves, as we bring others kind of into our ecosystem, it just becomes a much more collaborative approach. And the more educated our customers are about what we can control, what we can't control, the transparency around our strategies, and when we get alignment around expectations, I think everything just goes so much more smoothly. So thank you
Absolutely.
both.
No, thank you for coming on the show. And for those of you who've learned something new from this episode, please consider giving us a like or a follow so we can continue getting the highest quality of guests. And as always, thank you for listening. Michael, this was great from start to finish. You're just very clean at the way you answer. You're very precise. This was a great episode, so thank you.
The experience shows.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I enjoyed it, guys. Thanks so much.
Same here.
Thanks for listening to the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. And before we go, I just want to thank our sponsors, DevNoodle. DevNoodle provides marketing agencies with the ability to offer their clients unlimited website design, build, and management services with fixed monthly plans. If website design, development, and maintenance is holding your agency back from growing, please reach out to us at devnoodle.com, where we make websites easy for you and easy for your clients. devnoodle.com.